This is Thermopylae, coast of mainland Greece. In August 480 BC, an army of just 7,000 men, led by King Leonidas and 300 Spartans, fought here against a 250,000 force, led by Xerxes, the king of Persia. At stake, the future of Greek civilization.
2,500 years ago, Greece was not a unified nation. It was divided into independent states, including Athens, Corinth, and Sparta. They all suffered under the shadow of the Persian Empire, which included modern-day countries like Turkey, Egypt, Israel, Iran and Iraq, Afghanistan, and northern India, 2/3 of the known world. But the greedy king Xerxes wanted more, and decided to expand into Europe, and Greece was the gateway.
10 years ago, his father Darius was defeated at the Battle of Marathon by the Greeks.
Xerxes was determined not to suffer the same fate.
He gathered an army from all corners of his empire.
250,000 men.
And set out for Greece.
Xerxes' expedition was a great one, to conquer mainland Greece. Nothing like this has ever been attempted before in ancient warfare.
In 480 BC, Xerxes crossed the Hellespont and moved his army through northern Greece.
While the Persian fleet sailed across the coast, city after city fell.
Xerxes was very fierce and wouldn't stop at anything to achieve his goals.
Xerxes' goal was Athens, and so had to be stopped. And they had to do it here, at Thermopylae. Otherwise, he would have a clear way to Athens.
Thermopylae's gateway, no matter how big your army, it had to go through there.
The nickname Thermopylae means hot gates. The place was famous for its hot springs.
With high jagged mountains on both sides, the narrow pass was easily defensible, but it was also the gateway to Greece.
The Greeks sent an army of 7,000 to hold the pass. They were joined by 300 elite soldiers from the city of Sparta. It is almost impossible to imagine a city more unlike Athens.
The Spartans were on opposite poles to the Athenians. The Athenian society was very open and welcoming to anyone who wanted to come there, whereas the Spartans were a very closed society.
Spartans were trained to be soldiers, nothing more. They started their training from the age of 7 till they were 18. The army was their life. Even when married, they had to live in barracks. They couldn't trade or do business. All ordinary work was done by slaves.
Sparta was a small town. It had no more than 9,000 citizens at one time. Everyone knew everyone. When standing in the ranks, your brother might be a couple of ranks next to you. Your father could be behind you.
In all aspects, they were the ones who created the fortitude, and was the reason what made Thermopylae what it was.
The 300 Spartans were led by Leonidas, the king of Sparta. He wasn't optimistic about his chances against Xerxes, for one main reason. He set out during a Spartan religious festival, which was thought to bring bad luck. Also, the Greeks got bad prophecies from the oracle at Delphi. A priestess prophesied that a Spartan king would have to die for victory to be attained. Leonidas' wife, Gogo, asked him what she should do if he does not return, which he replied, "Marry a good man and have children."
Leonidas was of very strong resolution and brave. He was in his 50s. He wasn't a young man. He was coming up to retiring age, even for ancient Greek times.
Spartans wore a sculpted bronze breastplate Each man carried a shield, shaped like a shallow wooden bowl. Painted on the face of the shield was the Greek letter lambda for the Spartan homeland. Their main weapon was a spear, wielded overarm, 8 foot long, leaf-shaped, iron head, and a bronze butt spike. For close combat, they drew their short sword, the Xiphilus. In contrast, the Persian army was lightly armed. These men were trained for fast-moving combat on an open terrain. Xerxes greatly relied on the Medes, who were noxious archers. His pride went to his most elite assemble of 10,000 immortals.
The immortals were the cream of the Persian army. They were recruited as a privileged troop. The term immortal was a Greek one, because they believed that when one of the immortal died, there was another eagerly waiting to step in their place.
Leonidas stood with his Spartans at the tightest spot in the pass, with 7,000 Greek troops deployed behind them. Xerxes gathered his army on a flat plain at the entrance of the pass.
Xerxes waited 4 days once in position, because he didn't believe that these Greeks would actually stand and fight. He thought it was a joke.
On the 5th day, his patience ran out. He demanded, "Surrender your weapons." Leonidas shouted back, "Come and get them."
A lone scout was sent by the Persians to check on the Spartans before the battle, and they were just oiling themselves up, doing workouts and combing their hair. The scout thought, how are they so relaxed? But what they were really doing was motivating themselves for a fight to the death.
Xerxes had a throne on a nearby hill, from where he worked his Medes into action. From where the Greeks were standing, they could only see a few thousand. This was only the welcoming party to another 10,000 waves to come, hidden well behind the mountain. Leonidas held back his Spartans and ordered the Greeks forward.
The Battle of Thermopylae had begun. It would not be the walk in the park Xerxes had imagined.
August 480 BC, the Greek army led by Leonidas and 300 Spartans are facing a Persian army, 250,000 men. Xerxes watched with disbelief as 700 Greek soldiers lined up at the entrance of the valley. They formed a phalanx formation. Their phalanx was a forest of spears.
The commander would signal for the push, and the rear ranks would push the men in front with their shields and essentially try and push the enemy off the battlefield. They trained their whole life for this moment.
This phalanx is 18 men deep and 64 across. The shields overlapped, each man defending the man to their left. Like serpent scales, virtually impenetrable.
The front two rows lowered their spears and started walking towards the Medes. In contrast to the Greeks, the Medes were lightly armed. They carried wooden skewed shields and spears. Before advancing, the Mede archers volleyed a horde of arrows. Leonidas sent in more Greeks as reinforcements to push their weight into the backs of their fellow troops, reinforcing its structure. Volley after volley of arrows filled the sky. As the Greeks began to tire, Leonidas ordered the Spartans forward. They advanced in a phalanx formation, and the exhausted Greeks ran back. The highly trained Spartans slaughtered all in front of them. When the Medes saw that their own weapons were useless, they started grabbing at the Spartan spears in desperation. Now the Spartans drew their Ziphilis, and the real butchery began.
Are you hungry? Are you tired? Are you thirsty? Are you wounded? It doesn't matter. You are a warrior, and you fight.
The confined space made it impossible for the Persians to take advantage of their superior numbers.
They could not box enough men into the battle against this merciless killing machine.
Combat in those days was all hand to hand. If you wanted to kill someone, they were going to be right in your face, trying to kill you.
Wave after wave, Xerxes' troops perished as they tried to penetrate the Spartan shield wall.
Leonidas joked, Xerxes had a lot of men, but no soldiers.
As the battle moved into the second day, the Persians could not break through. They were simply not organized for this kind of fighting, too distant from the moors of the east where cavalry and chariots could decide the outcome.
Sitting on his hillside throne, Xerxes became more and more restless, jumping to his feet every so often like a spectator at a football game.
Xerxes was telling them to, go and take the pass, get these guys out of the way. So these lightly armed Medes went up against the heavily armed Greeks, and the heavily armed Greeks battered them back.
Xerxes decided to play his trump card and sent in his immortals. There may have been hundreds of thousands of soldiers on the field, but now the combat was between two fighting elites. 10,000 Persian immortals against what remained of 300 Spartans.
August 480 BC. Spartans have held the pass at Thermopylae for almost a day and a half.
Xerxes had failed to falter their defense. Now he gambled everything by sending in his personal guard, the immortals. They were a glorious sight. They carried bows, spears, and short daggers. But rank after rank, the elite guard fell in the dust.
The light-armed Persians couldn't penetrate the Greek armor, but the Greeks could penetrate them at will. And the Greeks were trained to fight at close quarters.
Nothing could shake the Spartans. Xerxes needed a miracle, and it came from an unforeseen source.
A Greek trader, Alcestis, found a chance to get rich quick. He crossed over to the Persian camp and told Xerxes about a pathway that's put around the back of a mountain that would lead them behind the Spartans.
The name Ephialtes has entered the modern Greek language. It means nightmare in modern Greek. Ephialtes today is a nightmare.
Under the cover of darkness, the Persians funneled up the track, and on the morning of day 3, emerged behind the Spartans.
He knew this would be his last battle. To avoid unnecessary casualties, he sent the rest of the Greek army home.
The Spartans would stand alone.
It must have been an extremely emotional moment as brave men were walking out, knowing that they are going to live, while the others were walking up to the front line, knowing that they were going to die.
One of the Greeks have warned, the Persians have so many archers, the arrows will blot out the sun. Well replied the Spartans, we'll fight in the shade.
This was Spartan wit. When somebody says something like that, you laugh and the fear goes away.
Leonidas was more somber. He ordered his men to breakfast, saying, "Tonight we shall dine in Hades." As the battle recommenced, the Persians closed in on the small band of Spartan survivors. But with the Spartans with nothing to lose, fought like demons. The Persians suffered many casualties. Then Leonidas fell. His men rushed to him to protect his body from capture or dismemberment.
The fact that the Greeks fought in the way to preserve his body from the Persians, even at the moment of final defeat, symbolizes how important the position and role of the king actually was.
Xerxes then decided to bring the battle to a quick end.
He tried to fight soldier to soldier as honorable Persian tradition. However, he could not break the Spartans. He had lost nearly 10,000 men, including 2 of his own brothers. He decided to withdraw his troops and finish off the Spartans from a safe distance with arrows. The Spartans viewed the bow as a weapon for cowards because it killed from a distance. Thousands of arrows rained down on the shattered Spartans until not one was left standing. They were finished off by the weapons they loathed the most.
A furious Xerxes ordered his men to find the body of Leonidas, and once found, cut his head off and stick it on a pole.
The Spartan king had made him pay a terrible price for victory at Thermopylae. 10,000 casualties was a drop in the bucket for such an immense force. But it was a blow to Xerxes and the morale of his army. He was astonished that men would fight for an ideal, the ideal of freedom. Xerxes raced on through Thermopylae to take Athens, but its army and citizens had already fled. Later that same year, 480 BC, they took to ships and defeated the Persians in a wild sea battle. Xerxes' grand scheme was in ruin.
Had the Spartans not done their bit at Thermopylae, then the whole Greek resistance would have started to crumble.
For the Greeks, it was destiny. A Spartan king had died, and a Persian king had been defeated, just as the oracle had prophesied.
All kinds of civilizations had left great monuments, but the Spartans left nothing. But what they left just by their actions that one day is still living on today.
To the people of Greece, the heroism at Thermopylae sends a message of hope and pride that the 300 Spartans will never be forgotten.
The grateful Greece paid the poet Simonides to compose their memory.
Go tell the Spartan stranger passing by, adhere obedient to the laws, we lie.